Welcome to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series. Today we have Therese McLaughlin. Hey.
Roy, hi. Hi.
How's it going, Audio Description Narrator?
I know, it's so good. It's so good. I'm so happy to have you in my computer room. Your face on my screen. Makes me very filled with joy.
Oh, filled with joy over here too. We are so excited to have you for 100 different reasons, and I'm sure we're going to cover every single one of them plus an extra one.
I'll take it.
You want to jump in?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
There you go. So I'd like to start by asking you what you love about audio description narration.
Oh, boy. But we should have picked that. Why don't you just pick a really hard one for me or something?
It's right out the gate.
It's like, I'm going to try not to make it a really long, embarrassing answer.
Oh, please do. It's the best.
But, okay.
Yeah.
The thing about which when I sort of stumbled into audio description, which I quite literally stumbled into it, I didn't realize how important it was. I didn't know this is years and years ago, but I didn't know it existed. It was beginning, I think. And then I sort of stumbled into it. And when I sat in the booth, this is going to sound so altruistic and goofy, but it's true. When I sat in the booth the first time when I was actually reading narration for someone who is blind or low vision, I was completely overwhelmed with how important I felt it was, with how the world had been closed to so many millions of people that deserve to have as much access as everybody else. And we're all in the performing arts. And then I learned more and more about how people have been creating audio description in their families and in their villages and in their towns and in their own lives. Like they would have theaters where people would go and sit next to somebody and describe a movie. They would have days where they would do that. And everybody wants to do something important. And especially as performers, we all like to think that we're doing things that are important, but a lot of times they're not. But this is, and it's important. And it made me feel like part of a bigger movement to create a society and even though it's entertainment, but to create a society that I want to live in, that we give everybody the opportunity and the tools available to enjoy themselves or to educate or to laugh or to cry, whatever, that everyone gets to do it. And just because your vision is impaired or you are blind, why is that a reason to not have access to everything? It's insane. It's insane. I mean, it's like suddenly saying everybody with red hair doesn't get, like me, which comes out of a box, but it is red, and doesn't get to go out and enjoy the same things that all the other people do. So when that dawned on me, in that moment of what I was actually a part of, it was like a ton of bricks. It was sort of like the first time I ever discovered voiceover. The first time I was in a booth, I was overwhelmed with how at home and in love I felt. And then this was the second time I've ever felt that way, being in love and at home and being of service and being part of a solution and being part of a community. And then I get to watch all these shows. And, so did that answer anything, or did I just ramble on?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. It answers a lot.
Yeah, it's just so important that we give everybody access. Other communities have access to things, and there should be more and more. So in that regard, I want to be part of a solution, and I love it, and I love the people that love what we do, and everybody uses. I mean, so many people use it. So that's how that happened. Yeah, I got hooked.
Yeah. Well, it also sounds like there was a similar hook when you first started doing voiceover. How did that voiceover, specifically the performing arts, inform what you do with audio description narration specifically? Like, did the one you said it, you fell into it, but was there some sort of bridge or transition from performing in voiceover to audio description narration, or was it just, it kind of seamlessly happened?
Oh, Well, like I said, it sort of happened quite by happenstance, not accident, but happenstance.
Oh, my yes.
Yeah, no, but I know I had to make that distinction for myself. But the thing about being a performer and using our voices is it's so expansive. Like, I'm not limited by what I look like or how old I am, or it's just right. So that's what's true of voiceover, which is a great thing. Doesn't matter if I'm wearing my pajamas, drinking a cup of coffee. I'm not wearing my pajamas, but I am actually fully dressed. And so for the performing arts in terms of audio description, because we cover so many genres, and because we cover so many attitudes, and like I can do a documentary. I did a documentary recently about ice caves and underwater caves. I also did a documentary years ago about Steve Gleason, the football player who has Lou Gehrig's disease. And then I can do a comedy or animation, right? So you can't sound the same in all of those things because you have to groove into the feeling of the show. So, but I'm not performing the narration. We don't perform, or I don't, I'll speak for myself, perform the narration, but it needs to have the energy that has the viewer in mind. So I can't do, you don't want to do an animation, a really slapstick comedy with a very sort of soft, stilted sound. That's more for, meditation. So that's where performing really has come into it, is that we have to sort of switch into a character attitude. Like, what are we conveying to the audience? Because we are then, for the audience that listens, as much of a part of the show as the people on screen, yet we have to stay somewhat in the background so we don't distract. So in that, it's incumbent on us to understand the pace of the show, the timing of the show, the feel of the show or the film, and then adjust accordingly. So we match, so we match what's going on screen.
So all those considerations that you're giving to match, I mean, what I'm hearing is you are performing in a way that's unique. It's not necessarily an actor where you're just getting into everything, but you're also riding the emotion. Am I putting words in your mouth, or is
No, you're not. No. Well, you can, though, because your words are very good.
We could say words together.
Together.
Oh, boy, that failed. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you did. Oh, Roy.
Yes.
It's not performing in the way that you would if you were acting out a scene at all. It's a much more nuanced thing. I feel that it's much more nuanced in that we are there to enhance the vibe. So we're kind of, I don't know, I guess I can just thinking of this right now. We're kind of like the background music, where if you're paying attention and you hear it, it goes with the thing. But the goal of the background music is just to create the mood and enhance the mood. But it shouldn't stand out. So we should be able to be heard, but not really part of the action. The action is what's going on screen. So we're there just to facilitate it. So it's been a different sort of learning curve, because in my performance, I've kind of a big personality and I speak quickly and I get very excited and I'm one of those people that jumps up and down a lot, but I can't do that in the booth. I have to sort of really get into my lane of what the show is asking of me, and then I, as the performer, sit and think about the audience, what they're feeling, what the show is asking of them, and then I need to tune myself to that, so it's not distracting. Nor should it be boring, because they do have to listen to it. So if it's flat and monotone, that would be kind of painful to listen to. For you don't want to be robotic, because that doesn't serve the show either. So yeah, it's a different kind of performing. It really is. It's much more nuanced than I'm actually used to. Now I've gotten used. Now I'm used to it. I've learned. I've learned by doing and then listening back to myself, and then sometimes I'll turn on a TV show and listen to the description. And I listen to other people's descriptions too, just to hear how other people make it work. So yeah, it's just a different type of performance altogether.
Well, it sounds like it's a lot more than just reading words. And the scripts obviously make a huge difference, the quality of the scripts. But if you're given a top-notch script and you're just reading the words, it sounds like that's not going to fly. That's the one extreme that you were... You can't,
exactly. You can't just, I can't just read the words. Because we're part of the show. We're an integral part of the show. For the people that use audio description, whether you are blind, low vision, sighted, it doesn't matter. Whether you're in the other room doing dishes, because a lot of people do that. I have done that. We are part of the show. And it has to be, pleasant to listen to, because it's a visceral thing. It's the sound coming into your ears is going to create a feeling. It needs to match the tone of the show, because or else it'll be the cognitive dissonance. When you're, one thing is heavy metal and the other thing is smooth jazz, they just don't go together. And it has to be enjoyable, yet not distracting. So, yeah.
Could you give an example of two different types of reads? Like, let's say one read where it's what we talked about, that condescending read, and then another read where you're following the emotional nuance. Can I put you on the spot for that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So let's think of a line, right? This is the audience. Give us a line. Give me a line.
Give me a line. It's like improv. Okay. She walks in the store and let's give it a little longer and pushes a cart or something. I don't know. Makes sense.
She walks to the store and grabs a grocery cart. So if I'm doing a kid's show or something that's condescending, or not a kid's show is condescending, but in that sort of vein, she walks to the store and takes a grocery cart. Right? That would make me just want to throw things.
Yeah, I've already turned off the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
We just lost like half of the listeners.
Roy's now throwing softballs at the screen. But then we would have to also decide what we would have to just know is the tone of the show. So
let's say that she just walked, what if she just found out that her cousin is returning from international travel and can't wait to see her?
It would maybe be a bit brighter. She walks to the store and grabs a grocery cart. Just a tiny bit brighter.
Sure. And I hate to go tragic. What if something really horrible just happened and she has to go to the store out of...
A tiny bit, just a tiny bit more, a tiny bit heavier. She walks to the store and grabs a grocery cart.
It's a little different there. Just a little nuance.
Yeah, a little bit. Little bit. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing
you're
that.
Welcome. Thank you.
Your training in voiceover has helped grow that nuance that you're talking about, and also your experience in doing it. Can you share any examples of how you've engaged with your audience as far as any additional specific training with audio description, or maybe some other...
That's great. Yes. This, a number of years ago, a few years ago, when I had first gotten into audio description, as I said, by happenstance, it was something that I came into and didn't know what it was at first. Then I listened to an interview on a podcast that I listened to because I'm a podcast person. And it was an interview with Dr. Joel Snyder, who wrote a book called The Verbal Made Visual. And I heard the Visual Made Verbal. I'm sorry. The Visual Made Verbal. Hi, I'm a little dyslexic too. The Visual Made Verbal. Excuse me. Dr. Joel, sorry. So I heard an interview with this man and he talked about this book. And of course I immediately bought the book, and then the book came, and then I was flipping through it, and then I thought, I've got to get in touch with this guy. I want to learn more. So I just emailed him out of the blue. There was a link to, I think, his personal email or an email, and I wrote him and I said, how do I meet you? How do I do this? Where are you? What happens? And he very kindly, because he's one of the most lovely people, wrote back and said, I have a training coming up in Virginia next year, and then there are with the American Council on the Blind does their conferences, and we often will do something in conjunction with that. So I thought, so right there I signed up for the training, which was at that point like 6 months later, and then I went to Virginia and spent a week in a group, in a class training. We went through the book and we did practical things, and we talked a lot about the theory behind different types of audio description. And and it was just an immersive experience. I mean, he put up this one thing. Oh, it still makes my head just, I obsess over it if I start thinking too much. It was a detailed drawing, a beautiful, beautiful piece of art of a honeybee. And it was very detailed. And then he said, just threw it out there, how would you describe this? And I was just like, humana. But he talked us through it, so there are descriptions for galleries, I've done tours for art galleries and things like that, where they'll write out description of the artwork. And then there are things like, he talked about live describing like a parade, all kinds of things, concerts. I thought, gosh, it'd be so great to get on the road with somebody and, who has a really cool show and audio describe their concert. Like somebody had written, she'd seen, I think it was Harry Styles in concert, and she'd written on my Twitter timeline, what was he doing? People were screaming and clapping. What was he doing? And I was like, oh, I wish I was there with a thing and speakers, and I could tell you he's dancing on top of the piano, or he's, just shook himself and everybody got all riled up. So I did that with Joel Snyder. And then the following year, I went again to the national conference, the American Council on the Blind, the national conference, and we did another meeting. They had another training. I didn't do the training that time, but this was more the for the annual meeting, and it was a practical thing. And we were paired up with participants, and we had like assignments to go around and find things to describe. And we were in St. Louis, and we had the Union Station train station, which it's a hotel now, and it's filled with incredible stuff. So we would pair up with people and walk around and describe things, and we would chat and just ask, like, what's it like? What do you need? What do you want? What works? What doesn't work? How is this working for you? How is it not working for you? So we got tons of great feedback, and of course, everybody has their individual likes and dislikes. But what we need to do is sort of create a template that makes as many people satisfied as we can, and then just broaden that out. And then as we learn more, we put more into it.
It sounds like that training really informed not only your accessibility commitment, but also how you do narration. Like it sounds like that was really specifically geared towards the writing or the actual description itself. It sounds also like that helped you and your narration. Did your narration change after experiencing that?
Well, it did. It did, because like anything, when something is an idea, when I have an idea of something, it has a certain life in my mind. Then you put in a new thing. So when I meet a person that embodies the idea, suddenly it becomes no longer just an idea, it becomes an experience. So it reminds me to think about who's watching, and to think about who's engaging, and to think about my audience, to think about the audience. Plus, there were just so many things I didn't know about day-to-day life in our community that we serve, particularly around entertainment, just particularly around the lack of access. And I mean, my father was physically disabled, and I learned a very quick, harsh lesson about how, back in the 80s, there weren't accessible things. And it's still that way right now for people with low vision. That's just disgraceful. As far as as far as most of us are concerned, I just can't accept it. And I won't. I'm raising my fists.
That's right.
Access. So, and I met, I just loved everybody I met so much, and we stay in touch. And so it's and their jobs are incredible. Everybody that I met with, from the creative to the technical to scientists. I met these amazing scientists. This one scientist from Peru who has he's trying to do an entire thing where they will be describing everything in scientific terms for students of reticulated on insects and big hard words. But so the cross section of people that I met was fantastic and wonderful. And I got to actually and then I got to ask those embarrassing questions, like, for a sighted person, I didn't know, do I say, and I hope the audience understands this, and if not, you can cut this out. Is it okay to say, we're going to watch this show? Did are you, and they're like, yes. What else do we say? And those kind of questions that I thought were dumb, or, I didn't want to say something stupid and embarrassing. And, so yeah, we watched the shows just like you watch a show. So those kinds of things, it was great to have somebody there who I'd actually had a connection with.
And with that, it sounds like you had mentioned, going back to what you'd said earlier, who you were talking to, when you're talking to the audience, you're thinking about maybe your friends that in your narration, that's an acting intention, that you're bringing that to them. Kind of dancing around something, that when you're talking to your audience in a narration script that you're reading, I'm setting you up. Are you speaking down to them because they're less than you?
Oh gosh, that is really a good question, because I'm sure that's what people think, right?
Exactly.
Get it out there. No.
Good.
Oh my God, that's such a great question.
I've heard your narration. You're exquisite. You bring that. Oh. The analogy of background music, I've never heard that before, and it's beautiful that you're riding that wave in such an emotional tone that the audience can fully immerse themselves. And I had imagined that when you're reading the narration, you're thinking about speaking to a friend of yours or a colleague or someone you respect, and not speaking down to them in a childish way or a musical way.
Patronizing or condescending, those two words I still confuse. But yeah, correct. That's such a good question. Yes, because it's not like I'm singing a children's song. It's not like I'm reading a book to somebody. It's that I'm part of the show, and I am the soundtrack. So, no, if anything, it's just to enhance and create the experience so that there's a more level playing field for the viewers. So that's my job, is to say to the viewers, we have this amazing show for you. We know you're a fan. We want you to keep watching. So we need to it is incumbent on us to make sure this is as accessible to you on an emotional and visceral level. Because if not, then the whole show is a waste. Then the whole experience, part of the experience, I'm sorry, I take that back, not the whole show, but part of the experience is wasted. And why do that? So no, I know what you mean by being, condescending or patronizing, or, no, that had never even really, I get why you asked that, but it's so funny that it's such I guess I just take it so to heart that I need people to hear it the way that I can interpret the intention of what the show is. And that's pretty easy to figure out at some point, whether you're doing a comedy or a drama or, a horror film or a documentary. And then there are different types of documentaries. One of the things too that happens is you get sucked into the work, right? You get sucked into the moment. When I did a documentary on Steve Gleason, we had to take a lot of breaks because I cried so often while I was doing the narration, because his story is so, but it's so incredible. And we had to stop. Even the producers, we had to stop because we were all so deeply affected by the story. And that's what I want our audiences to have. Or if I'm doing a comedy, one of the shows I'm doing now, which is one of my favorite shows ever in the whole wide world. And I'm so lucky that I got to be the describer on it. And, I burst out laughing in the middle of, I'll say something and and you know how I laugh, I bark, and I won't do it now, but I bark laugh. I'm like, and I have to, I'm constantly having to stop myself and pull it back and then actually just say, but I can't throw my interpretation on the line. Like, oh, what they're doing now is funny. I just have to tell them what they're doing. And then, the audiences will figure out whether that's funny or not. I tell them what they did, and then they can do the work. They know what they're watching.
Could you, you mentioned a producer. Who do you work with when you're doing an audio description? Obviously, there's the writer.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not you engage with them, who's all involved?
When we are in a studio at an office where we work with the shows, we narrators. I will be in a booth, on headphones and then there will be somebody in my ear who can hear me in real time. They're the producer and the sound technician, which will also be in my ear at the same time. So if I, make a mistake, we just jump back. I've learned also not to cuss when I make a mistake like I do. I'm like, oh, darn, oh, golly, oh, poo, rather than everything else I normally say. So it's a concerted effort. There's a lot of moving parts. That's such a terrible expression. There's a lot of people that go in moving parts. There's a lot of people that go into putting this together. So first the writer, I get a script from that. We get the script, and then when I'm recording, the live recording, and we do it live. We do it all live, right on at the moment. The TV show or the film is on a screen in front of us. I don't know if anybody, this is kind of a cool, crazy thing. It's on a screen in front of us. We're in a little booth with headphones on and a microphone in front of us. And underneath, while you're watching it, this thing called a time code is running, and it's the minutes and the seconds of the show. And when the writer writes the description, they do it to the time code. Like if I say, Mary shuts the door, right before that is 3 minutes, 22 seconds, 3/10. So I can watch that and I know about when that cue is coming up. And often there's also a line, and an actor on the show will say a line before I say, she'll say, I'm leaving now. And then I wait 2 beats and Mary shut the door. So there's a lot of parts to it, but we do it in the moment. We don't get it beforehand. We don't look at it beforehand. We don't get to see the shows beforehand. We don't read any of this description. We go in the booth and we do it right then and there.
So when you say live, that's real time. In other words, you're pre-recording it, but it's live for your experience.
Yeah, I guess it's not while the show is airing. It's because it needs to be embedded in the thing. But we're seeing it for the first time and recording it at the same time. And that was a good skill to be able to work on, to just be able to, watch the show, watch the time code, watch my script, and train myself to get my eyes to adjust very quickly. Looking at the screen, looking down, look at the screen, look down, and then think a little bit ahead. Not everybody can do this. I have a couple good friends that I would love to be able to, but when I told one of my friends what it entails, he's like, oh, no. Oh, no. He's one of those amazing that we call in the business the voice of God. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, no, I could never do this because I don't think that fast.
Well, back to what you had said earlier, you're bringing the art, you're bringing your skills and craft as a voiceover artist, along with these technical things of keeping an eye on the balance of the script and the time code and whatever's in the script that tells you when and how. There's a lot of moving parts.
It is. It's a bit of juggling. It is. It was intimidating at first. I must confess, it was really intimidating at first because there were a lot of things to look at and keep track of. And like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it. But at first I would before I would go and do a little job, I would get really scared. I would have a little bit of a panic before going in. I'd have to sort of breathe and relax myself because I didn't want to mess up, but also I wanted to do a good job. And there was a lot to keep track of in that moment. Now it's become a bit more. But there are times when now it's become a bit easier, but much easier. But there are times I still get nervous, especially when it's I know it's a big show or it's a big movie coming out. I get really nervous because I want it to be good, because it's important. I want to do my job well. I want to do that job well.
I'm thinking about the distinction that you're making here, that when audio description first started, it was a general term describer. And now, back to what we'd said earlier, you're distinguishing between the writer, the narrator, the producer, the audio technician, engineer. With all these people, here's the question.
Yes?
you've addressed this in a few things. Can you think of another specific example of maybe a challenge that you've faced within the audio description experience that you overcame and how you did? I think you've given a bunch of different examples of that, specifically with, okay, well, here's what I need to do to prepare, and here's what I do when I go in. Can you think of anything off the top of your head of, and I'm putting you on the spot here, a challenge that you overcame within the audio description narration?
What do you have in what regard?
Something that you didn't know how to do and you found a way to do it, specifically within audio description narration.
Oh, sure. Oh, gosh. Yeah. This one, subtitles. Oh, when a TV show, the first time I saw subtitles come up on the screen and my script just said subtitles appear, I had no idea what to do. I was like, I think I literally just sort of, bunched my fists into a little ball and put them under my chin and started to rock back and forth. Like, I don't know what to do. Thankfully, the lovely people I was working with said, here's how you handle it. He said, he heard me and my producer and said, have you done subtitles before? And I said, no. So what I mean by that, to be clear, when you're watching a show and a character is speaking, but they will sometimes, either it's because it's another language or because intentionally what they say is difficult to understand. Or somebody mutters, they'll put subtitles under it. Meaning on the bottom of the screen, there will be the writing of what the person said. So I'm describing, and suddenly I see subtitles appear, and I wasn't sure what to do. So that was one challenge, because what happens with subtitles is I am saying the subtitles as the person is saying them on screen. And I couldn't figure out what level. Do I say it more than they're saying it so you really hear it? Do I say it less? Then what's the point of having a subtitle? I just didn't know. I truly was at a loss. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. It may sound like a minuscule example, or something that wouldn't be such a big deal, but it was a big deal. I'd never seen it. I know what I do when I see subtitles on the screen. I just look at it and I kind of listen. But for our audience that's not going to read the subtitles, and then the person on screen is speaking, whose voice are they supposed to hear? So that was a little bit of trial and error, but thankfully my producer explained very precisely what level I should do them at, and how to make but that scared me.
So as a audio description narrator, are you doing that character like dubbing?
No, because I'm not that character. I am just there to describe what's happening. And part of my description is what they are saying as represented as a subtitle on the screen. So I'm just doing the subtitle, because it may be in some cases someone can understand a subtitle. I didn't do this movie, but do you remember like the movie Snatch with Brad Pitt? They subtitled everything Brad Pitt said because he was speaking with a very thick Irish traveler accent, and you could barely understand him. So they subtitled everything, but some people could understand and some people didn't care. So it wouldn't necessarily, I'm just using that because that came to mind. I did not do that show, but my job wouldn't be to make sure they understand what Brad Pitt said. That's part of the gag, but it's to make sure that the subtitle is audible. So you can tune in on it, or you can tune it out and listen to Brad Pitt doing his Irish thug accent, which was hilarious. So
great example. Okay.
So right, there are a number of movies where, especially movies where they have characters who are in, distress, or like Train Spotting, or even where people are muttering, which happens a lot on shows where someone is supposed to be under their breath, and you maybe can't hear it. But it's not for me to determine whether their intention was for the audience to hear it clearly or not. My job and my intention is to just make sure that it's present. So you can, but it's a weird thing because you either have to tune it in or tune it out. You don't have to listen to me in that moment, or you can. And that's a funny line to toe. Because if it's sort of too quiet and it splits the difference between the person speaking on screen and me, it's distracting. So every show is going to be different. And especially like reality shows where people speak very gently sometimes off camera, or they speak in hushed tones. We all know that's a big, how loud do we do that? That's going to be up to our producer a lot of times. It's going to say, either bring it up or bring it down a little bit, or you just got to sort of insert it. Yeah, so that's boy, talk about nuance. Woo!
A lot of decisions there.
Yeah.
Where do you see audio description going? Where would you like to see it go from where it is now?
Well, excuse me, I have to pull out my soapbox right now. And now I'm climbing on my soapbox. I'm going to put another brick underneath my soapbox. Here we go. I'm not going to have all the statistics on the top of my head. However, closed captioning for the deaf or people with listening hearing loss is 100% mandated across the board. So everything you watch has to be closed captioned. Everything. For the blind, audio description, and for people with low vision is, I think, like 7 hours are mandated. There was, and I'm going to mess up the stats, so I probably shouldn't even do it. But a minuscule number of hours were mandated, and even that was a struggle. So where I would like to see it go, I would like to see and know that audio description is 100% mandated across the board. Even commercials, even because commercials you're selling. We're buying. People who are consumers of audio description are also consumers. They're buying. People who, newscasts, you want to know what's happening. It makes a difference if your newscaster is standing in the middle of a storm or if they're in front of a green screen. It makes a difference if on the commercial, your toothpaste is in the top of a mountain, or, if you're on a date. These are things that that companies spend a lot of time and money thinking about to gear toward consumers. So our audiences, everybody, us, you, me, everyone who's listening, everybody who's describing, everybody who's consuming, we are all consumers. And I love it. I certainly like to buy things. So everything should be 100% mandated. That's what I feel is fair. Maybe not even fair. It's at least equitable. So I think that's what I want, and that's what I think that we need to demand, and that the consumers of description continue to demand and be as loud as possible. And we will be out there being as loud as possible because we all work really hard to create good content. And if one person has to miss it because it's not accessible, that is disgraceful. We are paying for streaming services. We're paying for all of this stuff, right? We're paying for cable. We are paying for TV. We're pay. So have the stuff accessible to you. Oh, I'm going to start to raise my voice, so I will calm down.
It's great. And
one of the cool things... It's just a travesty that we don't have it 100%. We're working on it. Part of us working on it is making sure that we all up our game and that we all do a really good job as describers and producers and sound engineers and narrators, writers, that we all just really up our game, because we don't want to be the sort of, the low, the sort of later considerations. We don't want to be in the back of the classroom. We want to be up at the front, being able to grant as much access as possible. And it's not just people that are low vision that use audio description. A lot of people do. People just, because they're doing other things, so they're listening to what's happening, especially if it's a show they know really well, that they just, they maybe are paying attention, but you can hear it. So yeah, I want it 100%. It's really other countries. I think the UK is 100%. I think that, other countries are 100% mandated. In the United States, and we churn out more content than almost any other country, I think. Maybe India is an exception with, Bollywood and stuff. But there's just no reason that we shouldn't have all. And it should be available in multiple languages. If you can click on a language on your television you should be able to click on audio description on your television or your computer, whatever you listen on. So,
there's my soapbox.
I'm wearing a hole in my soapbox, damping it.
Well, with it too, you distinguished something beyond just does it have it or not. That this mandate, I'm thinking about the streaming services, that they're outside of the SEC mandates and they're opting in, so they recognize the value there. And where I'm hearing you speak is the way to, if you said up the game or something to that effect, we're distinguishing the quality and excellence, that everyone's involved in audio description, everyone that has been involved in audio description and is involved is upping their game and finding better ways. As we grow and evolve, it's not just one person in the basement of some small town recording what they think's happening. That there's a whole team here, and each member of the team is making it even better. And that's establishing a benchmark, a standard for audiences that are going to expect. So that's like a quadruple win.
Right. That's the word. It's establishing a standard, and audiences should expect it, and they should have it, and they should have a standard of excellence, not just competence, not just done, not just there. It should be excellent. And yeah, the streaming services, I got to say, shout out to the streaming services, because they understand that people want to enjoy the shows, and that it is imperative, it's incumbent on us to create the access for everyone. So the streaming services where it's not mandated, the ones that have jumped in, we bend over to tell them that that it's great. Now our consumers of description, if they keep on pushing it as well, and then people that don't offer it, call them out. Why not? Ask why not. Who do they think they are to not offer description? Now, there are going to be exceptions where they're not yet there. Some, there's so many startups, right, in entertainment, and some don't. They're not there yet. But there are established companies and established networks and established services. They're all pretty much the streaming's getting on board, but that networks that don't necessarily participate. And why not? And they need to be called on the carpet for that, because that's disgraceful. With how much money we all put in their pockets, and with how many amazing millions and millions of consumers out there are fans, and the consumers are their reason to exist. And if you're not serving your consumers and all of the consumers, then you don't get to have a big audience. And shame on them. Shame, soapbox.
Really well. Thank you for sharing that.
I get so mad about it. Can you tell? But
and your passion shows, because you care so much about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you're sharing how others do. And this your voice is needed.
Everybody's voice is needed, though. Everybody, we all need to, make it happen. We just all need to push it. And particularly calling out people, companies that aren't utilizing description. So, yeah, it makes me cry.
How can we follow you on social media?
Well, on the social medias, my Twitter is Therese Narrates. It's Therese Narrates, Narrates, one word, on Twitter. And that's actually the best way to find me. Yeah. And I also jump in on the audio description group on Facebook. I will pop in there. I'm not as good on Facebook as I probably should be.
Is that the audio description discussion group?
Yes, it's the audio description. Yes. Sorry, Roy. The audio description discussion forum. That is a group on Facebook. And I pop in there now and again. I just forget to go on Facebook. I do. My husband's like, would you please go like your sister's post? I'm like, all right. So you can find me there. And I love when people want to say hi. I love it. And I post funny things, and I say, I'll always say hi. And I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you have to say about description, and what you think, and what you want, and what you hear, what you like, what you don't like. You can tweet me about anything. Tell me what the weather is. Tell me what your dog did.
Anything else that you'd like to share with our audiences?
Gosh, I've really talked a lot. But what I would like to say is thank you to you, Roy Samuelson, for being a huge advocate of what we do. Roy has, for our audiences, Roy has been an activist and advocate, not just an incredible human being and describer, narrator. He is also an enormous activist and advocate. So we all must follow in his footsteps and keep it going. Demand access. That's how it's going to happen. You don't ask, you don't get. So, and I think that is all for the moment. I've talked and talked.
Well, thanks for sharing everything. It's been so valuable to hear your perspective, where you're coming from, and where you want things to go. And boy, what a great, thank you for sharing everything and for all you're doing for our community, for your skills growing and all that other stuff. We're going to probably end this part of the recording, and then you and I can just praise each other for the next 10 hours.
Okay, good. With that. Okay. Thank you, Roy. Mwah. Lots of love. Bye.